Welcome back to Broken Electronics. I'm Lee, and I'd like to take this opportunity to wish you, everyone out there, from everybody here at Broken Electronics, who's me, a very happy Marcintosh. This is the second annual Marcintosh, and I've been looking forward to it. I've been thinking for quite some time about what to do to mark the occasion. And I think I've come up with something. We're going to be having a series. I'm not sure how many videos it'll end up being, but a series of videos on iMacs. Well, that's an iMac. You know, this really isn't what I had in mind, though. Well, that's an iMac. You know, that isn't really what I had in mind either. That's an iMac. Now that's what I'm talking about. Look at that color, that form factor. Look at the matching keyboard and mouse. Look at that design. Yeah, that's an iMac. That, of course, was one of the fruit-colored iMacs, grape, which I think is the most beautiful one, that were first introduced in 1999. 1 year prior to that, Apple did introduce the iMac with the original Bondi Blue model. The Imac G3 continued to reign as Apple's primary home desktop through the end of 2001. In 2002, it was supplanted by the Imac G4, which ran up through the end of 2003. In 2004, we saw the introduction of the Imac G5. Now, I have examples of all of these. Not every single version, of course. I've got the one Imac G3, which you just saw. I have two working examples of Imac G4s and two working examples of Imac G5s. So, we're going to take a look at all of these computers in this series, and we will run some benchmarks and get an idea of what the different machines can do. So, if you're interested in this, please stay tuned. Well, let's start it up. Harkening back to days of yore, the power button on the keyboard actually works. And you're going to see one of the first things with the iMac. This machine was not a speed burner. This was, the consumer level computer sold by Apple. It was, even by the standards of the day, very underpowered. Okay? And I apologize for the flickering, of course. That's the result of the CRT monitor. It is running macOS 8.6. Oh, the flickering seems to have gotten better. That was the original operating system with which this machine shipped. I did a video of installing it when I happened on eBay to find install discs, the recovery discs. Okay, the flickering is back again. All right. If we look up here in about this computer, 512 megabytes of RAM. And yes, I did upgrade this. And yes, that's the maximum the machine can address. $19.99, people. All right, we can get more information in System Profiler. Finder system is 8.6 US. There's our memory overview. The processor, PowerPC G3, 333 megahertz. The original Bondi Blue was only 233 megahertz. These were not particularly powerful machines. And if we look here, our hard disk, Macintosh HDD is only 7 gigabytes. That's a partition, actually, because you see here the data SSD. It's actually a 120 gigabyte drive, but at this time, you had to have the system files contained within the first 8 gigabytes of the drive. If you could install it on a larger drive, certainly, but if those system files got moved somewhere so they were no longer on those first 8 gigabytes, your system would no longer boot up. Now, this machine is only running Mac OS 8 right now. I had originally started out with installing 9.2.2 and had the idea of installing Panther, which is the maximum operating system it can run. No. Okay, now we can take a look in our applications folder. It says applications Mac OS 9. That must be because I installed OS 8 on top of OS 9. Okay, and we don't have too much here, but we do have AppleWorks. AppleWorks was actually a surprisingly good, and error occurred. I don't know if I've ever tried to open AppleWorks in here. Okay, here it is. And we can run our word processor, of course. We can do all kinds of things. And it functions very, very nicely. Most people did, in fact, use Microsoft Office. And there, of course, were versions of Office that did run on the machine. All right, you can get on the internet with ClassZilla, which does run on OS 8. It's very limited as to what it can get to, certainly. And you can play OS 9 games, such as Oregon Trail. Now, when I tried to install Panther, it would start to install, and then the system would lock up. And I do find from time to time the system does lock up on me. So I had wondered if perhaps it was a problem with the CD drive. But no, there's something about the system. So I think we're going to end up on this machine just happily staying on Mac OS 8. And we can run games like good old Oregon Trail. Traveling the trail. Let's see. Here's like being a carpenter. Need to give myself a name. Broken. We can save all those names. All right. By various provisions for the trips. Okay, we'll buy those. Leave in March. And now we're traveling the trail. Okay, now, this takes a while here, and I do want to get on to some other things. Take a quick introductory look at the iMac G4. All right, so I'll play this game out, though. Please stay tuned. I have always been fascinated by the design of this computer. It's kind of an accident, really. The guts of the computer, the logic board, and everything else are down in here. It's got a tray loading drive, optical drive, right down in here. Jobs wanted a design more similar to that of the Imac G5, which we'll get to in a later video. But Apple's design team could not deliver on that. So they came up with the all-in-one by basically having the display separate from the computer, but connected with this arm. And look at that. up and down, side to side. This display tilts. It's absolutely beautiful. I always called this, it was known by many people as the Flower Pot Mac, although it certainly got a number of other nicknames too. And I have always loved this design. Well, I'll tell you, we're going to boot it up and take a look at it in a bit, but I'm going to need to reset the camera, so please stay tuned. They did hide the power button on these. It's back on the back side of the computer. There it is. There we go with the chime. And it's not exactly a speed burner. Of course, throughout its existence, the iMacs were, local. Now you see Happy Mac there, which would lead you to think that it's going to boot into OS 9. However, notice up here in the corner, we've got a frozen beach ball, and now we're booting up into OS 10. Very slowly. Yeah, none of these machines were super fast by any means. Initializing the network, okay, that usually takes some time. And, which makes me wonder a little bit because I don't think I have the Ethernet cord plugged in. I'll have to take care of that. And here we are. Desktop Mac OS 9. However, if we look in here, we're going to see there is no OS 9. These are just the files for OS 10. Okay. And curiously, well, let's take a look at about this Mac. First of all, 10.1.2. This, my friends, is OS 10 Puma, the second version. And it's not even a fully up-to-date version of Puma. And I'm not going to bother to bring it up to date. 768 megabytes of memory, which is a lot by those standards. Now, this is a pure virgin install of Puma, which I believe was done by the gentleman who sold it to me. Oh, that's right. There's no utilities there. Oh. I do very, very little with Puma. Okay, but the utilities folder is right where you expect it in applications. And I'm going to bring up disk utility just so you can take a look at it. Okay, it's a 60 gigabyte hard drive. And if we click on it, $60 gigabytes. Now, where did I see this the other day? I saw it in here somewhere. Maybe it was in System Profiler. Maybe it wasn't System Profiler. What I'm getting at, yeah, it had to be System Profiler. And this still used the old Apple System Profiler that you'd be familiar with from OS 8 and OS 9. Okay, devices and volumes. Mac HD. No, that's not even saying it. Yeah, I discovered in here somewhere there aren't even OS 9 drivers installed on this. So when the guy installed Puma, it must have been that he had the install disk from this. This machine would have come with Puma. He didn't install the OS 9 drivers, making this installation virtually useless, because it really is not much in the way of software that runs on Puma. Most people who bought machines with 10.1 pre-installed, it also came with OS 9 pre-installed, and they would boot the machines into OS 9. Almost everyone did that. All right. So, stay tuned. I'm going to show you a little trick. Okay, what I've done is to plug my FireWire disk of installations, where I've got macOS 9, macOS 10 Tiger, and macOS 10 Leopard, all fully functioning. What I'm going to do here, you probably noticed about this Mac. This is an 800 megahertz PowerPC G4. Apple limited Leopard to 867 megahertz. Anything slower than that, you couldn't install Leopard. But I'm not going to pay any attention to that. Let's start it in Leopard. Now you'd expect a kernel panic. The most likely thing that will happen if you try to run an operating system that won't run. Okay. And look at here. It's booting up. Into Leopard. Now it's taking its time. It's got 768 megabytes of RAM. Leopard's minimum is 512, so it's pretty decent. Okay. And now we can see information that will be a little more familiar to us. 10.5.8. Here's our 800 megahertz PowerPC G4. Now, I've actually discovered this before. Back when my Quicksilver was a single 700 megahertz machine, I got it to run Leopard by simply cloning an installation onto the hard drive. Actually, it's an SSD, onto the SSD, and it booted up with no problem. The installer for Leopard queries the machine to find out the speed of the processor. Leopard itself is perfectly happy, and it actually runs pretty darn well on this machine. All right. Now we can come into System Profiler. We'll look at the ATA. So yeah, we've got Pioneer DVD-RW. Nice drive. It is a tray loader, which is awfully nice. I really don't trust slot loaders. I never have. Okay, yeah, this is where I saw it, in fact. Yeah, it won't show it in Puma, but Leopard does. Mac OS 9 drivers. He did not install the OS 9 drivers. I had been tempted to basically leave the machine alone, just install OS 9 so it would be more functional. But I'm going to have to erase that hard drive no matter what. And realistically, what I probably should do is to take this machine, put in more RAM, put in an SSD, and then get it running a little bit better. Because it's really not that bad at all. We should look at some other things, though. Graphics and displays. 32 megabytes of video RAM. That's sort of a bare minimum to really get Leopard running, and it does slow things up, but it does work. It does work. Okay. And I think that's all we need to look at. So, here's what I'm going to do. Now I can go to Utilities and open. Yeah, this is going to look kind of weird because this is the 1024 screen resolution. That's the maximum the display will allow. It's a 15-inch display. I use this drive on machines with much finer screen resolutions than that. So some windows will tend to look kind of funny. I'm going to have to erase that drive. So here we go. Into Mac HD, erase, and we will this time install Mac OS 9 drivers. So we will call it Mr. Capital. I've got the screen angled so that you can see it without my getting in. Oh, jeez. But I can't see what I'm doing. HDD. Okay, that will do. We're installing our Mac OS 9 drivers, and we erase. Now, while that's working, my plan, of course it goes very quickly, my plan is to run some different, we're mounted up already, tests of these machines. We're going to have to leave the iMac G3 out of that because, yeah, it's literally from another century. But I want to run benchmarks. Man, I do want to run benchmarks. And the benchmarks I want to run require Leopard. We see here that Leopard runs just fine. So, we'll select our source, which is Leopard Firewire. Select our destination, Macintosh HDD. And we're going to clone. And we're going to say continue. Oh, that's right. I was thinking there isn't a password, but that's on the Puma that I'm now erasing. Okay, this is going to take some time, so I will let this run, and we'll bring you back when it's done. Stay tuned. Well, we have a new record for longest cloning. 1 hour, 59 minutes, and 59 seconds. It's not that surprising, really. This Firewire is Firewire 400, of course. This drive is connected. It's a spinning hard drive in that enclosure, which is copying to an old spinning hard drive on an ATA66 bus. So, yeah. So I'm going to, no, I'm not going to shut the machine down. I'm first of all going to go into System Preferences, Startup Disk, that's selected. Well, I'm going to shut the machine down. Unplug the Firewire drive and start it up again. Make sure it boots. Stay tuned. Now, I have had no real doubts here. I've done this before. There are actually 3 ways that I know of to get Leopard onto an unsupported Mac. One is what we've done here, is to clone an installation from a supported Mac onto the drive. You can also use, there's a series of open firmware commands you can use, which will cause the machine to report the processor as being a supported processor when you run the installer. And there's a program called Leopard Assist that basically automates those open firmware commands. So easier with Leopard Assist, more control with open firmware. You can get machines that won't otherwise work using Leopard Assist to work using open firmware. Now watch, it'll crash. Tell you what. First time booting up. I'll bring you back when we get to the desktop. Stay tuned. Well, that was a long, slow boot up, but we are here. And just so there's no trickery involved, we do have our 800 Megahertz Powerpc G4 with our 768 megabytes of SD RAM. Not showing the startup disk, but there's nothing else connected. Okay, more info. Yeah, I was expecting it to say startup disk, but doesn't matter. We have no choice here. All right, so the plan now for the next video will be to run this machine some in Leopard, see what it can and can't do, and then run a set of comparisons with its younger brother, the 1 gigahertz Powerpc G4 iMac from 2003. Should be interesting, I think. In any event, be good to other people. Other people need it and deserve it. Be good to yourselves. Everything has to start from there. We'll make this world a better place. Since it is not, please take very, very good and careful care in these most difficult times. We're going to be back. I am planning at this point probably on 3 more videos in this series, and then back into Power Mac world. Who knows? Maybe even some Mac Pro things. We'll see what comes up. Until such time as those things do come up on this channel, this has been Broken Electronics.